if you are interested in naming your house, maybe grab some paper, a pen, and put on your thinking caps. Well, good morning, kindred spirits, afternoon or evening, whenever you're watching this. I woke this morning and I realized I just don't want to work in the garden today. I was having my coffee in the dining room, looking around. The sun was out at that point. Right now it's partly sunny, partly cloudy. And it would have been a good day to work in the garden, but I'm gardened out. I just don't want to work in the garden. And I realized I don't need to go in the office today. And I also realized I don't want to do any housework. Go figure. So I decided I'm going to take a little drive and walk around some villages, and we're going to look for homes that have names, such as Sugarwood has a name, and I've been asked over and over how I came up with it, and I didn't. This house was already named Sugarwood, and I'll go into that a little bit later. But we're going to drive around and walk and see if I can find some homes with names on them. I know I'll find farms. Those are plentiful, but we're looking for houses as well. And I'm going to wish myself luck because I find them all the time. It's like clothes shopping. You find them when you're not looking for them. So let's see if I can find some houses to show you, to inspire you. We're going to talk about ideas. How do people come up with names for their homes? And why do people name their homes? It's not new. It's very old, actually. So I'm going to go drive, find a village, get some coffee, and we're going to walk around and look at some houses. While I'm walking, I'm realizing that this might be a little bit harder than I thought in some of the towns that I'm going to. Oh, and this house has something on the side. I think it's just going to talk about the house. The old courthouse, 1788. Beautiful. Well, hello again, kindred spirits. Well, that walk was a big goose egg. I didn't find any homes named to take videos of like I wanted to. But that said, I do have some videos from past travels with properties that have names or names on them. I have a lot of books here that I'm going to share some information regarding how these books have homes that have names. And I have many notes that I'm going to go through about tips on naming a property. How do people do it? Why do people name their properties? And where did it come from? I hope you enjoy this video, and if your property already has a name, I would love to know it. Comment below. And at the end, if you don't have a property name but feel you want to now, I would love to know that too. And keep in mind, you don't have to have a house to name where you live. It could be a dorm room, it could be an apartment, it could be a campground that you're visiting, it could be your mobile home, your RV, anything. It's to help you have fun, gives it a sense of purpose, and makes it not a thing, but part of your life. So I hope you enjoy this video. And once again, if this gives you a little inspiration to name a property that you own, I would love to know. And if you haven't done so already, please subscribe. Like this if you get to the end of the video and you do like it, and follow along, and please tell your friends because we have fun here. I hope you're having fun, and I enjoy sharing all this information with you and your friends. All right, so let's get on to naming your property. I have so many notes here, and I hope I don't sound too scattered, but I did want to cover something first. And I know some people are going to come out of the woodwork because that's what they do. They're going to say naming a house is pretentious, it's for the hoity-toities. It's not. It's not. And if you feel that way, this video is not for you, so you might just want to go to the next video. Naming your house should be fun. It shows creativity. It shows personality. It could be whimsical. It can be serious. But it's not pretentious. It's not for the hoity-toity. Now, sure, in the past, we had, some royalties, and still some people who have some beautiful large properties are naming their homes. Ben just drove home. My focusing ability just went out the window. All right, so I'm gonna make sure he's settled. He's gonna be working in his office, and I will come back in a minute, and we will keep going with these steps for how to name your property, because I'm not good with being distracted at all. A little distraction turned into a larger one, which I enjoyed. Ben walked into the house, and he asked if I got to read the email that was sent out to a group of us looking for help, last-minute help, putting flower arrangements together for a group event of 50 that's happening this weekend at our club. So I said I can stop filming. I called, said I will show up. Well, I was the only one that showed up, and I got creative freedom of putting together all these flower arrangements, and I thought I would share with you what I did, and then we'll come back to naming our home. So as an odd turn of events of my filming, asked if I was available to volunteer to put together some peony arrangements at our club, which of course I'm like, yes. Somebody already dropped off flowers, but I'm going to see if I have a few still in the marshmallow stage, just so that the buds can open up by tomorrow. And we have a heavy rain coming in, so I'd rather bring them tonight versus all these others are passing. I'm going to bring some more buds, and we'll add those to the mix. Well, I don't have many left that are in the marshmallow stage. Somebody already dropped some off, and they had a huge peony patch. Seen it, love it, and so I just thought I'd bring an extra few just in case. All right, like I said, there could be plenty there, but I just thought I'd bring an extra few because I don't know what they need for help. And I love to play with flowers, so let's go help. And not knowing what they might need, I even brought some ribbon. I sharpened my scissors that I have a couple of these from when I used to work for a florist. And the flowers. Well, of course I thought about packing ribbon and my clippers. I forgot to pack myself something to eat, so I stopped at the local market, grabbed myself a little smoothie, and enjoyed it while I drove over to the club to then work and play with flowers. Okay, so pretty much was just given a lowdown of we're going to have some tables out here. So I'm going to make some low arrangements for the tables. I'm going to make a larger arrangement for the buffet. I might make an arrangement for the bar. And they told me I could even cut from the gardens outside because I've already eyeballed ferns and whatnot. So I'm just going to have fun and start putting some things together, and I'll probably put them in the refrigerator for the most part. There's some flowers in here that somebody brought by. And then I have mine, and somebody else brought these. Beautiful. And like I said, I get to pull some things from outside as well. Think out of the box here with some of the other vases. I see a large bowl here that I might be able to use for the large buffet. So I'm kind of tearing apart the kitchen here, and I spied an old coffee pot back here, and I just asked if I could use it. I'm gonna go take a look at it, and I might use that for the buffet. Now, I don't know, the top's kind of small for flowers, but I'm still gonna pull it out and look because it's so pretty. Well, I'm glad I got inside when I did. I guess I'm not going to collect flowers now. So I'm looking at the amount of mason jars I have here. And I also brought some tissue paper. I'm thinking I might put them in the mason jar and then wrap the jar with some tissue paper just to hide the fact that they're mason jars, because I have enough of those. Let me give this a go. Some of you might remember that I did this before in a video at Bratton House. And since I didn't want to use just plain mason jars, I am elevating the look by adding some tissue paper. Then I'm going to cut it to hopefully look like peony petals once the peonies are inside. So I probably doubled up my tissue paper, but I didn't bring enough. This wasn't a plan, just winging it. And now I'm just going to cut that. And then there's some extra here, so I'm just going to go around and cut it. No need to be neat. And then scrunch it. And over here, I already have a bunch done. I just have to now do that part. So let's have some fun with this. If you are interested in naming your house, maybe grab some paper, a pen, and put on your thinking caps and let yourself really become creative. I thought I'd first go over what is the history of naming your house. And I know some things and facts for this area, but I thought I would pull up some going even further back. I'm going to read this just so that I'm not messing it up. So for ancient times, Roman and Greek villas. In ancient Rome and Greece, wealthy citizens named their villas and their estates. They reflected the beauty of the landscape, the family name, gods and goddesses. Estate names, large agricultural estates in various ancient cultures include Egypt, often had names sometime derived from the landowner's name or the type of produce it grew there. In medieval Europe, manor houses and large estates were often named. These names usually reflected the family that owned the estate, the geographical location, and the notable features of the property. Like castles. Castles and fortresses were often named to denote their strategic importance or the family. Windsor Castle was named after the town of Windsor. And speaking of castle, so Beatrix Potter, one of the properties here that she had, it was the farmhouse at Castle Farm. Now, when she bought it, she kept adding to it, and she ended up calling it Castle Cottage. And of course, it wasn't the size of the cottage, but she felt the style resonated as that of a cottage. So if you wanted to call your house manor, even if it's small, go for it. You can do the opposite. Why not? And let's see here. During the Renaissance, naming country estates became popular among the nobility and the wealthy. But the names often had classical or pastoral elements, literacy influence, The tradition of naming homes was also influenced by literature and poetry, which romanticized rural life and the grand estates. Plantations and homesteads. In colonial America, plantations and homesteads were often given names reflecting the owner's heritage, the crops that were grown, and the natural features of the land. So once again, let's see here. What do I have? Well, this one doesn't have the features of the land. So we'll go with that. Oh, features of the land. So one of my friends that I showed you the house a while ago, their house's name is Terrace Hill. The reason is that the land is sloped and the house ended up having terraced landscaping done in front. So the land pretty much generated the name of Terrace Hill because they had to make, or they didn't have to make, they did a terrace landscaping out front at some point in its past. Naming for legacy. Settlers and landowners named their properties to establish a sense of legacy and continuity. This is when I read a word and see it differently than what I know it is. Continuity. Often names from their countries of origin. A great example of that would be this home here, the Fells. It was the home of John Hayes, and he named it after his ancestral roots in Scotland. Even though he was born in the U.S., he decided to name his property after those who came before him. Victorian and Edwardian eras. Let's see here. Urban and suburban homes. As urbanization increased, the tradition extended to the more modest homes in cities and suburbs. Names often reflected aspiration, romantic notions, and also the characteristics of that house. And that could be like twin chimneys, or it could be green shutters, anything. And we'll go over some name starters in a minute. And then let's talk about marketing appeal. If you put a name to a property and it's for sale, somebody sees that and they may get the feeling or the notion that that property was loved, it was taken care of. It's actually not a thing, but part of the family. And a lot of developers would also name a property to help the marketing. And modern times, customization and personalization. In contemporary times, people name their home for personalization and to reflect their lifestyle and or their values. The names can range from whimsical to deeply meaningful. And I have a few examples that we'll go over. Now, there's some cultural variations between here and British tradition. So it's saying here that in the UK, naming homes is very common, and I would love your input. I know a lot of you are from England and other parts of Europe that you could give me a little input here. It says it's very common, with the names reflecting the home's location and the notable features. Example, Rose, Cottage, Hill. Now that's the same pretty much here also. We take the features. So in American tradition here, the homes aren't named as much as across the pond, but I do think it's even picking up speed. A lot of people are starting to romanticize their lives, and they realize that their home, their house, which is now their home, is part of their lives, and that just gives it a little more life and purpose and meaning. So in summary, for that particular part of this, the tradition of naming a house in property has evolved from ancient times. It's not something that we're just starting for somebody to say, I'm just going to name my house because. No, it's been done for a very, very, very long time. And I don't want you to feel silly to do it. And you don't have to put a huge sign in your yard or a huge plaque. It could be something that you yourself just call it and reference it with your partner or a friend, or just even in notes if you're journaling. So you don't have to display it everywhere. That's some of the history of naming a house. So here's a few tips, and once again, these are just idea starters, and have fun with it. So personal significance could be the first thing you think about. When you're at your property, did something happen there to you even that gives you a wonderful feeling, or any historic significance for that property that happened? The location. Does it overlook the ocean? Does it overlook a meadow? Does it have pine trees surrounding it? Keep thinking and, make a little note of where is your home situated. Now, Sugarwood is surrounded by maple trees, and it has, or had, 2 sugar shacks. The very old one is no longer here, but there is a foundation. We still have one sugar shack. It was named after the trees that surrounded it, the sugar wood, the maple trees that produce maple syrup, or maple, not the syrup. People have to make the syrup. So, architectural features. What does your property look like? Is it brick? It could be brick manor. Does it have dormers? Does it have gables? House of 7 Gables has 7 gables. Now, that wasn't the name of it way back when, but that's a name that it was given down the road for people to recognize it. Historical context. Now, is there anything that's connected to history possibly? Is it the possible owner? Now, we have John Burnham is on the house here. This could be the John Burnham house. This could be the Burnham house. And it could be anybody's name that maybe was connected to that property. It doesn't have to be the person who built it. Many homeowners here in New England don't know who built their homes, whether it's 20 years ago or 300 years ago. But if you went and looked at deeds and somebody's name jumps out at you, you could use that as part of your property name. Using descriptive adjectives. It can give character, like cozy, tranquil, grand, whispering. It can help you create a feeling to that property. Symbolism and themes. Think about themes or a symbol that resonates with your property, like Harmony House, Serenity Village, Crescent Moon Lodge, and putting a few words together that gives a little meaning to the property. Combining all of the elements, so you could have your list here. Maybe it's in the pines, it could be windy, and it could give you a sense of peace. But you could combine 2 to 3 words to give your property a name. It doesn't have to be just one name. It could be several. And one thing to keep in mind is keeping it simple. Can it be pronounced easily? If you say it to somebody, will they remember it? And could they write it down? Because there are times where people will start thinking of your property by its name and not the house number. You want it to be unique. You want it to represent you. And once again, it gives it personality. And if it's unique, people will remember it. So considering its future use. So down the road, what would the name of the property possibly be used for? Now, I had no idea Sugarwood would one day be connected to a bourbon and a vanilla product. Go figure. But somebody created a name here, Sugarwood, that was simple, easy to remember, easy to say, one word, and 50, 60 years later, it's being used now for other purposes other than the name of the property. Get inspired also by literature and mythical creatures and stories. Asking for input. When you have friends and family over, ask them, what do you feel when you come to our house? What jumped out at you about the property? What architectural features did you see first when you drove up? I remember driving up here and noticing that the chimney was painted white with the black trim. Now, I could call it white chimney or something like that. So it could be anything that somebody says, oh, I saw this first, and maybe use that as an idea starter. So this is a list of some inspiration. So nature-inspired names could be like Willowbrook House, Maple Grove, Bluebell Cottage. Historic names, Victoria House, Tudor Manor, the Old Rectory, and I even took a video of a place called, I'm already gonna remember, forget. Was it Grand Manor? Country Manor. And it is part of a business, but you really can't tell. But it is a large manor in the country, and you'll see that right here. Descriptive atmospheric names. Tranquility Base, Whispering Winds Villa, Serendipity Farm. And then creative and unique names. Dreamcatcher Haven, Starlight Retreat, Dragonfly Landing.
So if you take, once again, all those things into account and make your own name up, it should be fun. Now, on Nantucket, so many of the homes have quarter boards.
Quarter boards were used on ships as a way of letting people know the name of the boat, who owned it, and this is an old photo I took when on Nantucket. I think it was like 2015, and you'll also see them now on homes.
Now I have this book that shows a few pictures with quarter boards and the names on it, and I have a little bit of information here about quarter boards and how they used to be used on boats, and then people used them on homes. But a fun example is one of my friends has a house on Nantucket, and her husband is a plastic surgeon. They called it Nip-Tucket instead of Nantucket. I think that is so creative when it comes to names. And I'm just going to flip through the page here, and I'm going to show you a close-up. And when we were talking about ancestral roots and things like that, now I don't know the history of this family, Dexioma, but it's the Greek word for welcome. But it's a cute name. They have it on a board in their house, and it's telling people welcome. Now the quarter deck boards or quarter boards, usually you'll find them in coastal communities, maritime communities, and it's a wonderful, cute way to name the property. And a lot of them you'll see that have carving in gold down to driftwood with paint. So it can be anything that you want to use. So if anybody says that you're pretentious by naming your property, that's their problem. You know, you don't have to worry about them. All right, so that's just a few tips of some ideas for naming your house and just some idea starters. I would love to know, do you already have a name for your property? Or if not, did this inspire you to maybe come up with a name for your property? I think, you know, I liked driving here and knowing that there was a property name. I don't know why. I grew up in a house that was called Nathaniel Peabody House. My parents, we had a property in Maine that when my parents bought it, there was a big sign out front called Windy Hill. So I'm used to properties having names, and I don't think it's strange at all.
Now here's a little more inspiration from books I pulled off of our shelves and from our travels. Now, Gladys Tabor's home and property was called Still Meadow, and Edith Wharton's house was named after her great-grandfather's house, the Mount, so that name was used twice. Christopher Spittmiller's house, Clove Brook Farm, was named after a nearby stream called Clove Brook. When interior designer Catherine Crisp-Greeley purchased her home, she noted that it was full of wormy chestnut. She ended up naming her cottage Chestnut Cottage because of the wood that was used. I'm thinking it's safe to assume that there are 7 gates at this farm, and then we have Charles Broadway's house. He named it The Roost. One of the many farms that are local to me, Winrose Farm. And in a nearby town, this property is called The Thistles, and it was named that in 1888.